Welcome back to TCU Talks. Lynda and I have an amazing topic for you today.
Growing yourself.
What does that mean, though?
It's not about getting taller.
It's not
I've been
about
trying for years.
eating Twinkies. Even though if you got pandemic bod on still, that's okay, right? Hopefully by this time now, the gyms are open or the weather's nice enough where you can go outside and work out. That's how I work out.
That's how you work.
I'm doing the robot right now for you on podcasts.
Jason running on a treadmill.
If you're joining us on podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google something, we also have a YouTube if you didn't know that. So it's a great place if you want to watch us in person, maybe while you're getting breakfast ready, you want to have it fun for the family. We want you guys part of our family, so please join us there as well. We also have our own independent Instagrams. Those you're going to have to find. I'm not going to tell you right now because I can't remember mine off by hand.
It'll be in the description below.
But, hey, guys, if you like what we do, make sure you give us a like. If you think somebody needs to hear a certain episode or think they will enjoy our content, make sure you share that with them. Make sure you're following the little bell thing. You can hit it, and then you get notified when we bring them out. And if you don't hit the notification, know that every single Friday there's going to be a new episode on podcast and on YouTube, and our pup wants to say hi.
Come say hi.
Bring him in. We'll see how long he lasts.
He won't stay here long.
We have a dog. His name is Dexter. He's part of the TCU family, so he'll occasionally join us. And that's another reason to come to YouTube, because you will just human bullshit.
If you're on podcast right now,
you
are
don't get
missing
the pleasure.
all this fuzzy goodness. Tiny puppy.
All right. If you have anything else to say,
Nothing
we
else
can
to
continue.
add? All right.
He's clean. Okay. What does growing yourself really mean? We're going to do this more free form. It's not going to be like a point section or anything. But essentially, growing yourself is getting to the next stage or pushing yourself outside of where you normally are or what your comfort zone is. Okay?
I think there's definitely, obviously, many different areas of our life where this can apply. It could be growing yourself in business. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it means on a professional level as like a business owner.
Grow your bank account.
Growing your bank account, growing like your fundamental skills in your trade. Mm-hmm. Or growing yourself on a personal level. You know, learning more about yourself.
Spiritually. Relationships.
Health, fitness.
Communication.
Yep.
Every single area. If you want to get better at telling jokes,
you can grow there too.
Yeah. Lots of options. I think it comes down to a lot of people think, well, why should I? First of all, we're going to get into it, but you're growing in some fashion, whether you know it or not.
Yes.
Okay? But I think coming down to why, it's a human nature. It's in nature, right? Plants are continuously growing and reproducing and changing and expanding. The universe is continuously expanding. Us as humans, I think it's an internal thing that we want to progress further than where we are currently.
I believe that we're all just souls having an experience. And the point of this lifetime is to experience life. Mm-hmm. And if we're not growing into who we are meant to be or our potential, then what are we missing out on?
Yeah, and at no point are we going to tell you what that looks like for you.
Nope.
Because it's not my life, right? You were on this earth for a short period of time, and that's kind of scary. But at the same time, make sure you're making the most of it for what you want to do. Okay, don't let anybody else tell you that. A lot of people say, well, it's not for me. I don't believe I need to focus on growing. I'm just going to live day in, day out, and it will happen. But a reminder that you can be growing towards something that you want, but you can also be growing towards something that you don't quite want. And that can happen subconsciously if you're around a certain environment, if you're taking in certain materials, or if your coworkers are pulling you to drink every day after work. Are those in line with your goals? And know that you're growing in two different directions.
I think an example that makes a lot of sense to me is career, obviously.
Sure.
If you're not constantly evolving with the new things that are coming up and choosing to learn and choosing to press forward, maybe someone's goal is not to hold a bigger position with their company or something like that. But if you're not constantly evolving and growing in your career, eventually you go at risk of phasing out. Would that be the right term to use?
Yeah, it's almost being like obsolete. I use the example because I used to work there, but Blockbuster wasn't growing, wasn't keeping up with
evolving.
The world, and they got left behind, right?
Yep.
And that can happen in your life if you're not careful. In a relationship specifically even, right? If your relationship isn't growing, I'm going to tell you right now, you're on the edge.
I think that's fair to say.
If that's harsh, I don't think it is. I think it's honest.
I think it's important to acknowledge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And doesn't mean get a dog and everything will be fine. Get a fish and it'll all be okay. No, it's actually genuinely growing, right? Even in our relationship with our parents, I've had to step back. And I'm saying this to myself, not just everyone listening. I've had to get refocused with my family. I've had to get refocused with Lynda. I've had to get refocused and know what's important to them. And that leads me into my next thing that I wanted to chat about a little bit was who does growing myself impact? Okay? I like to relate it to throwing a rock in a pond.
The ripple effect.
Is that fair?
Yep.
Right? The people
Everything
closest to
touches.
you, yourself, is the initial rock, right? That initial circle of people around you. Those are the ones that are going to be directly impacted by you growing and getting better. Okay?
Your spouse.
Yes.
Children.
Yes.
I think that's a really big area. I know a big driver for me in my personal growth is as I grow and develop into the person I want to be, that gets to be the example that our children are going to see. And that's hugely important to me because that impacts their future and them seeing growth as a positive example.
And then as that circle ripples out, you're having coworkers, you're having people maybe you're on public transit with, right? But then even if you go further than that, and this is where we're expanding our minds on why it's so important to grow ourselves, is the people that you haven't even met yet that are going to be affected by your personal choice to grow as a person.
Yeah.
Right?
The community, and then the community's community.
Oh, yeah?
In a huge way.
You don't know who you're going to meet 10, 20 years from now, and that person's impact that you're going to have, or potentially the impact you have with somebody now that's going to ripple out into somebody else, and somebody else, and across the world now with social media, you can have impacts, right? And is it a positive impact? Do you feel good about the impact you're having?
Yep. And I think it can come down to such a small thing. Someone's path to grow, maybe it's something like choosing to be just all in round a happier person could lead to you smiling more. And maybe that smile, maybe you smile at someone as you walk past them in the street and that changes their life.
Oh,
it brightens their day. It
There's
makes such a big impact.
Yeah, there's a story, and I don't know where I heard it, but I'm sure somebody had said it before, but if you're walking in the mall or down the street and there's somebody maybe that's just like contemplating whether they want to be on this world or not, and they just like, I just, nobody cares about me, nobody loves me, nobody values me, and then they look up and you just give them a smile and say, hey, hope you have a great day, or hey, I love your shoes, and that stops them from taking that choice that maybe they would have regretted. That is a huge impact for me, right? It's so easy, especially when you were going through this pandemic and almost a recession, if you will. We're wearing masks, we're more closed off than ever before. But you can still smile with your eyes, and I think it makes a huge difference for people.
Just kidding.
Yeah. I think you were getting onto a point there, but where can people start in terms of their growth? Like basics.
I think for me, obviously I think this varies greatly everywhere, but I think growth starts with thinking about what you think about. So very on like a personal level of, evaluating where you currently are at.
The dog's joining us again, by the way.
See,
this is why you're going to be on YouTube. You're going to see the dog.
I think growth starts at the very basics about evaluating yourself, where you are, how you feel, what actions and behaviors that you take.
So taking a self-budget.
a self-budget, a self-evaluation,
Yeah.
self-reflection, I think that's where growth starts.
Yeah.
For me personally, I think.
And I think, unfortunately, that happens typically when people are at their lowest.
Yep.
My biggest growth is coming out of some of the darkest, lowest times of my life. And it doesn't have to, just so you know. You don't have to hit rock bottom to make a massive change. This dog is loving it. He's a superstar. Dexter is going to be a superstar. Yeah, I think that's really important. Start with evaluating where am I now? Where do I want to go? Because that you'll find a lot of passion in. That's the driving forces. Why am I growing?
Yep.
Who am I growing for? Specifically for yourself, but then the other people around you. It's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do is maybe find an author that you relate with, or an actor, or a public figure that has similar things that connect with you. I think it's easy to relate to people like that if you don't have anybody in your life that is like that.
And I think on that topic too, obviously I think when you're specializing in a certain area, so maybe your growth department is something like leadership.
Yep.
I believe that it's important to choose one or maybe two coaches. So whether that be a coach, like a physical person in your life, or one particular, call it personal development coach, influencer, something like that. That way you can really hone in on your growth without getting conflicting views. Because let's be real, on these shelves of books behind us, we've got
Wide variety
of people. But if you're getting conflicting from all over the place, especially in the beginning, as you're trying to find your identity in your growth, it can be a little overpowering, I think.
I bring it back to weight loss because it's very similar. Weight loss and any personal development is very interchangeable. There's a lot of weight loss advice out there, but if it's not in line with what you want to do, right? Eating the rice cake diet, right? No. If it doesn't fall in line with you, then don't do it. Like, it's not going to be a positive experience for you, okay? So, books, audio is a great way. Like podcasts.
Having a business coach.
Yeah.
If that's within reach for you.
Yeah. I would say those are probably next level. Business coach. And, like, if you want to go next level, you're doing seminars. You're doing weekend courses, week-long courses, where you get out of your environment and you almost do like a boot camp for your mind, where you get out of your environment to work on just yourself.
On the topic of programs and seminars, though, I think it's important to note that there are so many free or very inexpensive courses, seminars, classes that you can take on a particular subject that's important to you. You just got to look for it.
Yeah, 100%. Everything works for people. That's right. It's the value you're going to get out of it and how committed you are to it. If someone says you need to go here and you're not ready, don't go. You're not going to get anything out of it. How long should it take to see some form of change in yourself when you first start?
I think it takes as long as it needs to. I think that's important, that if you're expecting your entire life to change overnight, you should change the expectation there. That being said, if you can change the way you see one thing, that's change. If you're working on being a happier person and you read something that just gets you that aha moment and you're just like, huh, and it means you smile more, that's a little step, but a big step. So
yeah, so what Lynda's saying there is once you start getting knowledge, you gain a different perspective. And that's a lot about what personal development's about. It's about changing perspective on things that already exist. Okay, I'll say that again because I don't know if that rang real connection with people that are maybe listening. Okay, knowledge helps give you a new perspective on things, which then helps you grow. Okay, so that's a good thing to remember. The changes might not be massive right off the start, but knowing that if you gain a new outlook on something, That's your first step. That's the instant change where you now know something that you didn't know before.
And it can totally be instant.
It can be instant. For bigger changes, it might take a few years, right? I think a lot of the times I've looked back and I go, wow, imagine if I didn't do the things that I did, where I'd be.
Yeah.
And that's cool, but don't wait that long to make the decision, because you can do the opposite. You can look back and go, I wish I would have. I wish I did. I wish I didn't say that. And it can be the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. I love the advice that we've done so far. We've already talked a little bit about finding the right thing for you. What would you say if you feel like somebody maybe started a book or an audio that they didn't feel connected with? Should they force their way through and suck it up, or should they just stop and shift?
I'll be honest with you. I've started books that I didn't finish. I think there's a timing for everything, and I mean, you can't force it. If you force it, you're going to resent it, feel like you're wasting your time. So yeah, I mean, I've started books and gotten 2-3 chapters in and said, nope, not right now, and put it back on the shelf and grabbed a different one. And I think that's totally okay.
Yeah, I've done that probably I did one thing, my record was 7 different books. I picked it up, started reading it, said, no. Somebody else recommended me something, I pick it up, read it, no. And then I just went, maybe reading isn't my personal growth journey right now.
Yep.
Maybe I need to switch to audios. So then I got on YouTube, I researched some people, I got fired up about a certain person, and I just watch them. I feel so much better. Okay? A good tip for you to find out whether you're reading the right thing or listening to the right thing is to find out if it's relating to you in your life currently. So I'm reading a book and I may be struggling with something and it gives me the answer in it. I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, this book is like speaking to me, right? And that means you're reading a good book, or you're listening to the proper audio if it connects with the thing that gets you excited or helps you go through an issue.
And it's funny you say that too, because like I have my all-time favorite book, and I recommend it to everybody. However, that book impacted me based on the stage and spot in my life that I was. So while it's my favorite book and it was so amazing, it may not resonate with someone the same way that it did for me. Yep. So I believe that sometimes someone's going to recommend us just that perfect book that we needed to hear and it was meant to fall in our lap. And other times someone's going to recommend a book that's just not in line with the growth stage that you're at, and that's totally cool.
I feel like a book that I feel like always comes up in that topic is like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the book that if anytime somebody's like, I want to start my own business, they're like, have you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Or they're like, I want to get into real estate. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I want to work on myself. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But it's a great book. For the right person. There's times that people recommend it to me earlier on in my life, and it had zero impact. And then I went through a phase of like, I want opportunities, I want to look at the different things, and it became a really influential book for me, and it gave me a lot of understanding of how business and money works. Now, speaking of resources, we're getting connected to these people through their experiences, maybe their research. They've talked to hundreds of entrepreneurs or people in their life, or they've done something amazing. They ran a marathon, they're an Olympian, they're an actor. That's surrounding yourself with people of like mind that are in line with what you want to do. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, how can you do that in real life?
I mean, I'm so incredibly grateful for the community that we have. And I think that's so important to surround yourself with people who also have a growth mindset. I know if I took a look at myself, say 10 years ago, I mean, I would have said, oh my God, you read those self-help books? Like, what? Crazy. Like, yeah. And now, like, we have such an incredible community of people who do read and who are growing and seeking to become better. And I mean, let's be real, if you're listening to this, you are one of those people who is seeking something to better their life. And that's so important. You know, if you're saying you're on a growth journey, the last thing you need is someone bringing you down, telling you it's silly.
We
not
love
supporting
people who love life.
you. Yeah.
It's
love
just
life.
so much easier to just be with the person, hang out with people who just love life instead of complaining about every single thing that's going on. And hey, if you're in that stage right now where you're just maybe feeling a little bit negative about everything, you know, maybe you just need to hang around with people who are more positive about things in their life.
Absolutely.
And letting that kind of sink into you, because it will rub off on you. It's just the way it is.
You are the average of the 5 people you spend most time with?
Yeah, and that's in everything.
Absolutely.
Money, career, family, relationships. And that's something that I think we've been really good at, is finding different couples or different people who are strengths in different areas.
Absolutely.
Right? And then we kind of latch on to them and pick their brain about, hey, how do you be great parents? And we don't even have kids yet, but we want to get that mindset of what works for you to have such a great relationship with your kids, because we want that in the future. So find out the different people that maybe have what you want, and then just try to get closer to them. Okay. Don't stalk them. Don't show up on their doorstep randomly.
Don't be creepy.
Don't be
Start
weird.
conversations. Invite them for coffee.
Yeah.
It's a good place to start.
Share value, right? Say, hey, I'll offer you coffee if you want to, let's hang out. And if a friendship arises there, then great. We've talked a lot about finding information. We've talked a lot about gaining knowledge, a new perspective. We gave some tips along the way. What are some action steps that people can do to start their self-growth process? Okay, because what's growth without action?
Agree. I mean,
it's like somebody training for the 100-meter dash for the Olympics. I just saw a story on YouTube, actually.
Yeah.
This guy, it was a speed bike racer. I think it was, I don't know how many meters or how the distance was. But he trained for 4 years before the Olympics. He gets onto his bike. He's about to start. Slips out of the holder. And they go, well, you're done. Right?
That's dreadful.
Yeah, so that's how it would feel if you studied all this stuff and you learned all these things, and then you're about to take action, and then you slip and you don't do anything.
I mean, you know what? I hear so often when, people talk about, well, I read 52 books this year, and you're laughing because my number is quite high. Maybe I'm not always implementing everything that I read, but you always hear, oh, well, I read 52 books this year. That's fantastic. But if you're not studying and implementing the things that you're learning, and you're just then what are you doing it for?
Exactly.
I think it's important to study the material and implement the things that resonate with you and put them into practice in your everyday life, whatever subject you're looking to learn and grow from.
I think that's important because there's a difference between just consuming and studying. And part of studying is putting into practical action. So if you're reading something, like I was reading this book called Bluefish, and Bluefish is a lot about doing business differently and, experiential recognition with clients. So paying attention to the people that you have as clients and actually listening to what's important to them and then being able to offer that to them in a different way. Anyway, so one of the things I did was I have a client that, I just started working with and they're an amazing person, and they just mentioned that they were into a certain hobby, okay? And it was something like astrophotography, let's say. And I was like, that's amazing, pretty unique thing, right? Not everybody's into that kind of thing. So then I just went on Amazon, found an amazing coffee table book with just some amazing photographs of it, and then sent it to them with a handwritten note inside to say, hey, this reminded me of you. I hope you enjoy, pretty much, okay? But that was a practical action tip that I took right away and implemented it, okay? Boy, it made me feel good, made the person feel good, but those are different action steps that you can put in right away.
And it instills something for your future,
Mm-hmm.
right? Once you implement something and then implement something and implement something, it becomes just a part of who you are and the way that you do.
Mm-hmm. It would be like a doctor studying how to do open heart surgery in a book, but then never doing it. And there's a difference between, if anybody's ever studied something in a book and did something in practical in the real life, they are very different things. So you need to start putting them into action. Okay. How often should people actually do personal growth?
That's a good question. I think it varies for every single person. I think every single day. If you're not growing, you're dying. But what that looks like in terms of personal development, should you read a book a day? No. 365 books a year, that'd be insane. But maybe it's 10 pages every day. That would be fantastic. Should you listen to an audiobook every single day? No, but maybe you choose to turn your vehicle into a
mobile university.
Yeah. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think this is something where I don't have time. I don't have time to read. I don't have time to listen to audios. It is a daily practice.
Yep.
Okay? Because as we go through our day, if we're not consciously aware of how we're being and what, if you will, state, which is just what your emotion is, then you are not aware of your life. Okay? Being self-aware, being aware of how you're being is a form of personal growth that even if you didn't act the way you wanted to act, the realization of that you didn't act the way you wanted to act is part of the growth process.
Let's give ourselves grace. But absolutely, when you think about what you're thinking about,
yeah, that's personal
thinking
growth.
About it,
yeah,
thinking about what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Ongoing, all the time, implementation of what you're learning is development. I like it.
I want to talk about one last thing before we close it out for today. Is I want to prepare you all for what I call the stall out or the rut when personal growth happens.
Elaborate.
Okay, so let me explain this. When you start gaining awareness of how you're being and how your mindset used to be, you almost have this self-degrading feeling. Okay? It's not always awareness, but if you've ever done a big course and you've had a self-transformation, sometimes a week or two after, you'll kind of go into a lull. And I think that stems from the fact that we go, man, like, I'm so upset about the way my mind works. Right? I'm kind of like...
self-defeating.
Yeah, a little bit. And I don't think it's always an awareness thing for people. They just get into it and they're stuck there for a few and they're like, why am I feeling like this? I just did an amazing course or I just had read this amazing book and I feel like I'm stuck and I'm in this rut. What's happening? Okay? I want to prepare people for that because I've been there. Okay? I've been really excited and then I've had to like take time. And what I think it is, you might have perspective on this. I think it's our mind's way of implementing the new programming. Okay? It's a way for us to start gaining understanding. And I think part of it's repetition that we need to do. Okay? That will help get us through the rut. Is if you feel like you're stuck, reread the thing that you just did. That helps. Have you had that experience before?
I mean, absolutely. I think a part of it, from the way I understand it, is, for one, change is difficult. Like, when you create a paradigm of always doing something the same way, and now all of a sudden you say, hold on a minute, I want to change this. You know, there's that confliction of, like, one side of you is like, you know, I'm ready to change this. And the other side of you is like, wait, this is familiar. This is what you've always done. This is comfortable. And those two sides start to fight, where one side's like, no, we're changing. And the other side's like, no, we ain't. And I think that's where that rut comes in, is as you start to like force and drag that decision into, action and reality, almost like stall out. That part of you that doesn't want to change is kind of stalling the change in an attempt to stay comfortable.
And all the things we talked about before we got to this point is what's going to help support you through those moments. Okay. That's why we created TCU Talks.
Yep.
Right. It's part of the podcast that we're doing, is for when people are looking for support, right? Maybe they're looking for that one thing, right? There might be something in what we chat about in these that help people through those. Okay?
Absolutely.
Part of your community, having a strong community around you, will make a massive difference on how your speed of getting through something will happen.
100%.
Okay. And actually, I want to end on that, is personal development or personal growth just increases speed. And what I mean by speed is when you're looking at making action, or you're looking at making a shift, or you're trying to get out of a rut, personal development speeds it up.
Yeah.
So let's say maybe that rut lasted a year, right? Sometimes you feel like a year just flies by. Well, now it's going to help shorten that to maybe 6 months. Maybe you're stuck in a rut for 2 weeks, and now it's a week only. Maybe you're stuck in a rut for a day, and now it's only an hour, and you can continue to make forward progress. That's why we're growing, right? That's why we're continuing to give back to ourselves and other people around us.
Speaking of giving back to the incredible people around us, I want to talk about TCU Foundation. Incredible foundation that we started in the beginning of 2021, where every single month we are taking someone nominated by you and we are gifting them with $100.
Every single month we're giving away $100?
Every single month, $100 to one person nominated by one of our listeners. So take a look at the link down in the description and tell us who you think is deserving of a little extra spoiling.
Yeah, if you're on podcast, you have to click on our profile, and it should be in our kind of like bio. There's a link there you can click. If you're on a YouTube video right now, below this video, if you click the description, there should be a link there as well. It's called TCU Foundation, and you can nominate your person there.
Yeah, so we want to know you. Obviously, we want to know who it is that you're nominating and why you feel they are so deserving. We're going to choose one lucky winner. Yeah. Reach out to them.
Give them $100.
And just spoil them.
Yeah. We've given away a few of these already, and it just feels so good. And I think the person who nominated the other person feels even more better than we do, because they know the person directly, right? They know what they're going through or why they're inspiring. And that leads me to, who can you nominate? Somebody that's struggling, somebody that's amazing, giving back to tons of people, maybe that's super selfless. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's your parents, your spouse.
Someone who's just impacted their community or even you in a really big way.
Yeah, maybe it's a kid, a neighbor's kid who just shovels your snow all the time, right? Doesn't ask for anything. That's a great person.
Yeah. It's a great person in my books.
Anyway, if you guys loved what you heard today and you were fired up by the end of it, make sure you smash that like button, right? Make sure you share with somebody you think that would gain any value from it, and make sure you hit the follow button or download button on Spotify or podcasts, Apple Podcasts. That way you can take us with you anywhere you go. Okay?
Love it.
Hope you have a great day. Continue growing, and we'll support you along the way. We're part of your community now, so we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.